But since that moment, I can't stop hearing your name. Wondering about you always. Come back, Georgia, come back. Come back, Georgia, come back. I just need another chance. Chance to make it better. Come back, Georgia, come back. Come back, Georgia, come back. I just need another chance. Chance to make it better. I was unhappy the day you
Before we get started, I want to encourage everyone to turn on their cameras, and when we are started, feel free to jump in if you have any questions. This is an open platform for everyone to contribute, so don't feel shy. If you don't want to turn your mic on, just drop it in the chat. Yeah, familiar faces. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Johnny. Saloni and Cindy. It's like all my meetings merging into one. Come back, Georgia, come back. Come back, Georgia, come back. I just need another chance. Chance to make it better. Oh, to think that you would be resting in my arms. How I wish I knew, Georgia, where you are. I can't be without you, Georgia. Let me know whenever you're ready, and I'll share my screen.
I think we're good to go. It's 11:04. I think we can get started.
Cool. Let's screen share. Does everyone see the slideshow okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. At this month's roundtable, we are going to be getting into a couple tips and tricks on interior design portfolios. We know that there's not just one way to do a portfolio, and there's not one thing that we can tell you that makes a portfolio great. We think what really makes it amazing is everyone kind of putting their own little twist on things. You know, every firm is looking for something a little bit different. So today we're going to talk about just some little, action items, a great way to get started, some things to think about when you're putting your portfolio together, to really rein in and make everything look good and cohesive. So without further ado, let's get into it. Next slide. All right, portfolio content. So what even goes into your portfolio? I know starting a portfolio can just feel like this giant undertaking. So let's start with the first step. I think a really great first thing to put into your portfolio is your resume. This is a great idea just to kind of help interviewers kind of know a little bit about you, what your skills are, kind of start off your interview with that kind of elevator pitch. Some things that we think people sometimes leave off of their resumes but are nice to include are putting any clubs and organizations that you're in, like good old IIDA. We're all here right now. Definitely slap that on a resume. It looks wonderful. Same with ASID. If you have an IIDA club on your campus, and you had a leadership position, say you were the treasurer, president, whatever, awesome to put on your resume. Really tells your interviewer that you are incorporated into your design community. So really nice to have on there. Don't forget about that. Same with volunteer positions. One thing that came up was Habitat for Humanity, this looking really nice on a resume. Also won competitions. We know that IIDA puts together tons of student competitions that you can put in your portfolio and your resume. It's wonderful to see a project that you worked on, that you entered into this competition, that you won, and why it's so amazing. Kind of just shows, you apart from the crowd a little bit and how wonderful you are. Certifications. I know when you're in school, sometimes you can take your LEAD exam and other certifications like that. So don't forget to include those. So those are just a couple starting points. So now to get into a little bit about your portfolio. How many projects do you want to include in your portfolio? We were thinking that, 2 to 3 maybe isn't enough to really show off all of your different design skills and all the different types of projects that you probably worked on in school. I know each project kind of shows a little different of a skill that you honed in on when you're working on that project, or maybe a design problem that you solved when you're working on that project. So maybe 2 to 3 doesn't show that off too well, but 10 shows it off a little too much. There's only so much time that you have in these interviews to talk through your projects. And you want to, give each project the appropriate amount of time to talk about it. So that sweet spot, 5 to 7, get a great kind of different amount of projects that you've worked on that you're able to talk through during the interview process. Also, when you're starting to put together your portfolio, we would recommend putting your best work at the start. I know when I was interviewing, I was actually in Alabama because I went to the University of Alabama. And I was doing a lot of different Skype calls for interviews. And, there's always technical difficulties, internet issues, things like that come up. And like halfway through my interview, my internet just kind of shut off. And my portfolio that I was presenting on the screen wasn't showing anymore. And I actually put my best project first. And I work at a healthcare firm, so that was my healthcare project that I got to talk about. And I was so thankful that I already kind of got through that a little bit and that they were able to see my work. So definitely would kind of start off with a bang, put your best foot forward, and you're excited to talk about your portfolio at the beginning. You're enthusiastic, so a great way to start things off. Project types. So make sure to, sorry, did someone have a question? Oh, okay, thought I heard something. Okay, so project types. So thinking that you want to incorporate a couple different project types into your portfolio, whether that be residential, hospitality, retail, healthcare. Really nice to kind of show all of your different kind of technical design skills that you've gathered throughout working in school. And then when you're interviewing at a firm, I know I interviewed at a healthcare design firm. So say you don't have a healthcare design project, maybe if you do have a hospitality project or maybe even corporate design, something like that, learn how to kind of relate those projects back to, healthcare design or wherever you're interviewing at. Talk a little bit about what you learned from that work could help where you're going to be working then. Also including any projects that you've worked on during an internship. Even if, you didn't do the whole project, you're able to talk about the bits and pieces that you helped work on during that project. So whether if you helped out with renderings or maybe casework sections, something like that, show off, you're a great team member. And finally, artwork. What makes you stand out a little bit and show that you really are a designer, you care about design? Do you have, if you're interested in photography or anything like that, I think that's really great maybe to put at the end of your portfolio. So yeah, those are the different project types that we think would look great in a portfolio. And then finally, don't be afraid to show off some technical skills. I know sometimes it's hard to show these in a beautiful way in your portfolio, but add in those details, show that you're able to do that work. You know, furniture plans, if you have any pictures of models that you made, always great to incorporate into your portfolio.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
Talking about furniture plans, would you show like furniture selections that you made if it's part of a concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even that's like on a concept board to kind of show your ideas for different spaces that you're going to have in here. What's the feeling of the space? I think that's great to show, even like what kind of fabric is on the furniture that you've selected that has to, you know, kind of link in with your concept. I think that's amazing to show for sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Is there any other questions about this page, or should we move on?
I'll just add on, if you choose to show work that you have done during your internship, make sure you confirm with your project team that it's not an NDA project, a non-disclosure agreed project. I have worked on, when I was in lighting, all of my projects were NDA, so I couldn't show any of my work from those 2.5 years. It's very upsetting, but it's life.
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah.
A good point to make, for sure.
Yeah, double check. Make sure you don't throw anyone under the bus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's move on.
Sounds good. All right, so now that we know what is going into the portfolio, here's some tips and tricks about the layout of your portfolio. Okay, so we have to the right a couple different layouts of portfolios that we thought were really strong. And each of these, you can kind of see that there's a theme throughout them. So the one to the furthest to the left, you can see it's bright and yellow. All the yellow boxes that you see throughout the project draws your eye and kind of tells the story from the beginning to the end and kind of ties all these different projects together to create the portfolio. So when you open the page, you know, the title is highlighted in yellow. You kind of know where to start on the page, and that easily like flows through your project. Same with some text is highlighted, you know, it brings out and draws your eye to where you want to kind of start and tells a story throughout the pages. And then the next one, the gray one, it kind of does this in a different way. The gray is like a little bit more subtle. And I think this really makes your projects stand out and be the thing that you want to look at, but is also really nice because you still kind of have this simplicity that ties together, you know, the whole portfolio. All these different projects kind of feel similar in the portfolio and creates this really strong theme. Same with that blue. I think all of these are really like clean and crisp. Your eye really knows where to go on the page. Everything's really organized. It makes really, you know, readable and legible. You know, next I want to talk about is progress. So showing your progress of your whole entire project, you know, sometimes you want to just put like this beautiful rendering on a page, but let's make sure we talk all the way through the project. You know, we want to see bubble diagrams, concept boards. You know, how did you start with this, you know, design problem that you wanted to solve throughout your project? And how did you get to this final beautiful rendering? So starting from the beginning and kind of telling the story of your project all the way through. Don't leave out some of those important aspects that you worked really hard on during your projects. And then finally, just make sure all of your photos are adjusted for optimal brightness, color. You worked really hard on these projects, so just make sure everything looks great and presentable throughout your portfolio. And then layout, how to present your portfolio. So we talked about what goes in your portfolio, you know, the layout of the portfolio, and you have, you have a lot of great stuff, but I think one of the most important parts about this is how do you really talk through all of these projects and present them in a nice way. So a great way of doing that is kind of starting with your design challenge, whether you know, you started this project knowing that wayfinding was a design challenge, or on this project you learned how to use Revit as a technical skill. Start there and then kind of talk throughout your whole project how you really refined that skill on this project. Again, how you started the project, getting to that final beautiful rendering. If you are on a group project, I think those are great to include. Maybe just talk about your portion on the group project and how you helped the end result of this project. And then last but not least is practice. I know when I started my portfolio, I like had this idea in my head. I knew all of my projects so well, but when you really start talking and speaking things out loud, sometimes things get like a little jumbled in your head. So it's nice to just, you know, practice in front of a friend, practice in front of a teacher. Once you speak things out, they might sound a little bit different. So practice makes perfect. Are there any questions about this page, or should we get moving?
I have one question.
Yeah.
So per project, like what would you say the maximum number of pages you should use per project?
Ooh, that is a great question. We actually have a principal designer who is going to talk about all of these great questions too. And I think he would honestly answer that better than me because he's looking at portfolios all the time. I would say I would really focus on the projects that you're putting into your portfolio. And if you have a lot that went into that, you know, make sure everything is clean and crisp and organized on each page. But I don't think there is, you know, an exact like page limit. I would say 100 pages would be a lot, you know,
Yeah.
don't overdo it. Stick to that like 5 to 7 pages. But yeah, I would love to hear what Todd says about this too at the end of our discussion. We'll bring it up again.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also look at a couple of example portfolios and you can get a sense of, if you keep scrolling and you're like, when will this end? That's probably too much. Yeah.
Great.
I think you also want to keep in mind like the context in which you're sharing. I think sometimes you can spread things out on pages to kind of control the cadence of how you talk through something. But if you're sending it ahead and someone's looking at it, you want to kind of be a little bit more concise and maybe shorten a little bit, get to the point of the story you want to tell. So sometimes just knowing if you're voicing over versus not helps.
Yeah, definitely. Great answers. All right. Bethany, do you want to take it away with some examples of where you can show off your beautiful portfolios?
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly go over a couple of platforms and other resources that you can use. So the nature of an online portfolio kind of splits your options into two ways. You can either do a fixed portfolio where it's basically a PDF being published online, or you can do a website, which is just a little bit more interactive. So a couple of publishing platforms you can use. One that is most popular is Issue. You can actually find a lot of student portfolios here. That's actually how I started my portfolio. I basically stalked other people and found their portfolios. And you can just see how they're laid out, but as you're flipping through, you will notice it basically looks like a PDF that you're flipping through. So this is something that you completely curated yourself. You are completely controlling the experience of the user. So let's just count the pages and see how many she put in this project. 2, 4, she has plans and renderings and text all spread out. And then she brings in the technical drawings into the project. I think I counted maybe 10, 12. But we'll let Todd kind of comment on what he thought about this portfolio. But as you can flip through, you notice that maybe they have a set layout for each project. The first page is, the title, a couple of inspiration photos. You go into renderings, a text about the project, and it just keeps things very concise. It's very cohesive. There's a common language that all the projects are speaking to, so it doesn't feel very sporadic. Another platform that you can use, this is Issue. Another platform you can use is Behance. If you have a Adobe subscription to the cloud, this product is free. It's basically a cohesive mood board that you can create and or publish for yourself. So this person, Stephanie Tan, actually posted her portfolios and her projects on her Behance page. And I'm just going to go through one of her more recent portfolios. This was actually very well designed. I'm just going to quickly scroll through. Again, this is a curated PDF file. It's not very interactive on the user's end. You're just reading what she is intending for you to experience. So she also has a resume in the beginning, like Emily had mentioned earlier today. It really sets the tone of who you are and what to expect further on into the portfolio. A table of contents is also very good to have. It helps keep things organized. And she begins also with the project, with a project brief, concept statement, and she goes straight into some design process. She goes over some of the problems that the project has encountered, the thought process of creating the concept, and a little bit more background, context about the project. It shows that she had really thought about the creation of this project. And then there's no one way to present your portfolio or your project. So here she has plans, elevations, as well as 3D renderings. It very clearly spells out the 3D elements of the project. And then she further includes renderings. Her text is rather minimal, so that's something that you can consider. More renderings. And as you look through other people's projects, you will notice that perhaps they're using different rendering softwares. It's also really good to show your technical skill sets through various projects. So you don't have to have SketchUp, Revit, AutoCAD all on one project. You can split them up between each project. So this is another PDF formatted portfolio. I mentioned in the chat that we will be posting this presentation, so you will have all these resources for you later on. So don't worry if I'm just scrolling through very quickly. The other option is a website, which is, I personally think, a little bit more on the professional side. It allows you to develop over time as well. So here are the 3 big website platforms that you can use that are relatively affordable or almost free. There are examples linked here. Let's open a couple. The good thing about the website is that the user, the viewer gets to control what they're looking at, what they want to look at. You don't really have as much control over the presentation, however, in the verbal aspect of it. But we can go through some of the work. In my experience, a lot of the website portfolios end up just being photo galleries. So it's really cool to see a project where they actually have writing and literature about the project. It tends to get missed sometimes. And a website can be formatted in any way possible. You have complete control over whether you want it to be a scrolling gallery or a slideshow gallery. It's completely up to you. Here are some other, this is not interior design, but this is all I could find for Weebly. But it's essentially a gallery setting. There's very little text here. And this is not a student portfolio either. This is a professional portfolio, but you can look through and feel inspired by the layout of how they design their UX. Here are some ways that they laid out the project. This is a version of the portfolio where it's just like a scroll through gallery. Are there any questions so far about this? Cool. There are some additional resources in this slideshow that will hopefully inspire you in the creation of your either PDF or website portfolio. I'm not going to really go through. I'll let you guys explore it because we are nearing our Q&A time. So I would love to have Todd chat with us.
Yeah, I'll give a little introduction. So our guest for today is Todd Henderson. He works at, well, where I work, Boulder Associates Architects. He's a principal architect at our firm. He helped start our San Francisco office. So he's done a lot of interviews. He's seen a lot of portfolios. He knows what to look for. And I think he's going to give us some really amazing advice. So we have a couple questions curated for you already. So maybe let's start with those, and then we're gonna open it up to everybody, and then this is your time, ask away. Our first question for you is, how important is your online presence? What platforms do employers look at during the interviewing process?
Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. This is fun. Emily's introduction was maybe a little too generous because I can't tell you what employers look for. I can only tell you what I look for. And so your mileage will vary, right? So I don't want to overstate, what I'm able to offer. That's just simply the truth, right? So in terms of, Emily, your question is kind of issue versus Behance versus a custom website, that kind of thing. You know what? Personally, I sort of don't care because I'm more looking at the content, and here's the deal, maybe I want to pull the lens back a little bit. When I'm hiring someone, I'm not hiring you to be good at developing a website, right? Yeah. I'm hiring you for a whole different skill set. So I don't put that much emphasis on that choice of platforms. I think I see most people using something free like Issue. Personally, I kind of hate Issue because it's just got all this, it's like a NASCAR car. You got all these ads and all this junk around it. But so what? It's free. I ignore that. I don't hold that against a candidate. So personally, I sort of don't mind what a person chooses. Now, if you make your own website, you got to do it good. It has to be, that was a really great sentence, Todd. You got to do it good. You have to have enough skill to actually make it work. I see kind of iffy navigation schemes and just sort of confusing stuff where I have to wade through stuff I'm not, frankly, all that interested in. So if you go that route, know that there are choices you're going to have to make that could influence how you're viewed, right? Whereas if you just go with Issue or just a PDF, well, then it's kind of in the metaphor of a classic, you sort of flip through pages and nothing can really go wrong in my mind.
Yeah. Important to keep things, you're still a designer, so things still need to look, crisp and clean. And, yeah.
Can I talk to that real quickly?
Yeah.
That's the thing. That is exactly the thing. We, as creative professionals, we take ideas and we turn them into pictures for a living, right? We take complex stuff and we try to make it make sense, whether it's in construction drawings so that someone can go build, right, what we've designed. I look at a person's portfolio the same way. Okay, your task is, and you've got 3 minutes to do it, is to show me that you are the kind of person I'm interested in learning more about. And if you look at it through that, it's kind of about knowing your audience. If you look at it through that lens, the portfolio itself is kind of the thing I'm reviewing. I actually don't dig that deep into the content, right?
Yeah.
It's more, hey, you have this chance to make a commercial for me to view. Am I interested in what you're selling?
Yeah, your elevator pitch.
Totally.
Cool. We have another, oh, sorry, go ahead, Todd.
Well, it just at the risk of being maybe too snarky, and again, it's if I'm hiring somebody, I get to say yes to one person, and I have to say no to 1 or 2 dozen people. Understand that. I'm looking for reasons to say no.
Right.
it's kind of a caustic view.
Yeah.
So I just can't overstate how important it is. Make it hard for me to say no. Spell check your stuff, for goodness sakes. You wouldn't believe how low the bar is, right? Sometimes. Get someone to review your work and who's a good writer. Some of this stuff is real easy, and 2/3 of the portfolios I look at right off the bat, I go, oh, wow, if this is you putting your best foot forward, what's the quality? And it sucks, right? Because you didn't put the care in to write a sentence that actually is a good sentence. To, computers spell check for you. There's no earthly reason you should have a spelling mistake in anything you write, right? Look for the little red squiggly thing. If you don't care about your own message, how are you going to do when you're working on projects for me?
Agreed. We have another question, and if any of the students have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We will read them off for you. What are some things that a traditional portfolio can do better than a digital portfolio, and vice versa?
And by traditional, you mean like a hard copy?
Like a hard copy PDF, maybe you either mail or email to someone.
Okay. So, I mean, like a hard copy, actual, like physical, it's printed on paper kind of thing.
Yeah, you might bring in with you to an interview. Yeah,
those are such a vanishing species. I see those when I'm hiring someone who's got, a decade or 2 of experience, right? I mean, because we don't know how to do the digital stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think the nice thing with the digital formats is that you have more ability to guide the story that's being told, right? It doesn't have to be just you're flipping through, it's kind of a front to back navigation system. It can branch and whatnot. I don't know that I have a strong preference about that. However, again, this is just Todd, right? I'm fine with something that is effectively a book, whether it's digital, PDF, whatever. I kind of like PDFs because you can email them, right? And I can share them with a colleague. I guess I can share a link too, but it doesn't come with all the contraptions and advertisements and just crap that comes with issue or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, our next question is how to include technical information. So like lighting plans, the things that's not so beautiful, like final pictures of projects and things like that.
Yeah, wonderful question. And it's kind of that, maybe it's that know your audience thing. So again, I'm a healthcare architect. And so in healthcare, our work is more technical, right? And so when I'm looking to hire someone, one of the things I'm very interested in is, are you a curious person? Are you a problem solver? Are you interested in how things go together? Like really? because we have to dig deep into that in what we do. That's probably not true in residential work, for example. I don't know. I've, so far out of that. I don't know. So I love to see a detail, a wall section, some evidence that a person has dug deeper. And obviously, some of what I'm saying may apply more towards an architectural candidate than an interior designer, but there's so much overlap, right? So do include technical stuff. I don't know that I've ever been all that impressed when someone has just entire pages of construction documents in their portfolio. I'm not gonna zoom in and really check it to like, see if it's any good. It just looks like CAD. I go, oh yeah, CAD, and I move by. I make a note like, okay, well, you've done some drawings. That's a good sign, right? But for entry level folks, for folks who are just graduating, just entering the workforce, show me what sets you apart, right? And if it's that you've actually had the experience of doing some technical drawings, that's awesome. Include some of it. Yeah, again, don't give me 20 pages of it. A page or a snapshot of what you really like. Oh, look at this. This is really sweet, right? Help me zoom in on what actually is important about what you've done.
Definitely. Do you think it's important to include, like if you've done construction documents like in your portfolio at all, or is it more just like a blurb on your resume saying, like I've done this, I know what I'm doing?
I kind of both.
Yeah.
So much of this is a balancing act, right? Which is kind of a little bit what I'm looking for, right? Can you self-edit? So yeah, show me what's important. Tell the story of you. And pictures, pictures speak volumes. So if you've done technical work, I want to know about it. I might miss it on your resume, right? So having something in there, and what that can do is in an interview, right? If you get that far, because again, I'm looking to say no, but then it's a door to say, oh, tell me what you did on this, or you offer, hey, let me tell you what I did on this.
Yeah, keeps the conversation going.
Totally.
I kind of want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any burning questions that they need answered?
I have a question. This is Payal. I totally understand the importance of showing the process on how you arrived at where you arrived in a project. But is that something that we should have for every single project? And I'm asking this from the point of view of the length of the entire portfolio. So some light on that would be helpful.
Excellent question. And, unfortunately, my answer is depends. I've gotten portfolios that are 100 pages long and I kind of go, I wonder if this person has good judgment. Are they, seriously, are you going to show me every doodle you've ever done? And you want me to, spend time looking at that? You don't understand the process here, do you? Right? So self-editing and knowing your audience is kind of the meta skill that I'm starting to look for. So yeah, go deep on something that's really worth it. Spend more space, if you will, in your portfolio. If you have a project that's just like, oh my God, this is great, dig into that. And then if you have stuff that's like, and I did this and I did this, well, fine. Tell the story appropriate to what you want to communicate about those. But don't think that you have to give this kind of complete treatise on everything you've ever done since you picked up a crayon. I'm being sarcastic, but you know what I mean.
I have a question.
It's an advertisement, and so you have limited time to make your case.
I have a question if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Sure. So I can imagine as a hiring manager, you're also specifically looking for personality and the ability to showcase that. Could you perhaps describe some examples you've seen in people's portfolios where their personality really shined through, aside from the technical types of presentations they provide?
That's a fantastic question, and it's insightful too, because you're right. And again, especially with entry-level folks, sadly, I'm not hiring you for skills because you don't have them. Sorry. School. Babies, yeah. Well, and I don't mean to be, I don't want to be mean, but school, you'll all discover this. School teaches you 1% of what you need to know. Emily, do you think that's true?
Yeah, I felt like school really taught me like the principles of design and like really understanding design. And then when I felt like I got a career in interior design, like I really worked on those technical skills and like presenting skills and things like that.
Yeah. So you're right, Johnny. What I'm probably looking for is the person who has the spark to dig in, the curiosity, the problem solving. And sometimes some of it is honestly just, when we're working long weeks together, are we going to drive each other nuts? Right? There's some of that. So how much of that can you reflect in your static materials, your resume, your cover letter, your portfolio? Some, but I think, I'll kind of get back to your question properly in a moment. Again, I'm going to kind of zoom out. When we hire, and again, every company is going to be different. Bigger companies are going to have more steps than smaller ones, I think. But by the time I'm looking at somebody's materials, they've already applied on our website, and our internal recruiter, Erica, has filtered them out. So if someone simply doesn't meet what it is we're looking for, I will never see you. So know that. Then we take this kind of first pass at, hey, do I want to know more? Right? And that's what I've been talking about a lot today is, okay, did you do a nice job on your materials? Am I interested? Have I found reasons I just need, yep, this person's sloppy, get them out of here. If you pass that, then Erica gives you a call and we have a phone screen and she's going to talk to you and ask you some questions. And I get the results of that. And that honestly is where is a lot of where a person's personality, kind of their demeanor, their phone manners sometimes, right? Be nice to Erica. If you're not nice to Erica, you ain't getting any farther. Seriously, that is such, I'm always astonished that that's not obvious to candidates, right? Like, you don't just have to impress me. If you're unkind to anybody that I work with, you're not going to be a fit for my company. No way. That's a great reason to say no. So I don't have to tell you guys, honestly, interior designers are nicer than architects, so this doesn't really come up very much. Don't, that's between us. I got lost. So again, personality. So it comes through in some of these other touch points. And then when I'm interviewing somebody, that's really when I'm going to get a sense of, good grief, do you just resonate at the same frequency that we do? So not all of that can or has to come through your portfolio, cover letter, so forth. Sometimes I see candidates, I think maybe almost trying, I call it the whiff of desperation, trying to make their stuff creative in this really like sort of overdone way. And more often than not, the more of that I detect, the more I find it to be a detraction from their materials. It's okay. A cover letter should look professional and confident. So honestly, the quiet confidence, again, for me, your mileage will vary with other hiring people, is something that I find appealing and makes me want to know more. And then, you know, the notion that you've got, I mean, if any of you have interacted with Emily, right, you can see why we hired her. She's a spark plug, right? She's a delight. That's so nice to have. Well, that, you know, that really comes through in those phone interactions, and then if you get an interview, more than anything. Johnny, did I actually answer your question, or did I just shotgun all around it?
No, you definitely answered.
Okay.
But if you have, yeah,
Okay.
if you have any specific examples, just memories that you have that definitely like caught your attention and was like something you could pass on, that's something we're looking for sure.
The memories that I have are the unfortunate ones where I go, oh honey, you tried too hard and you shouldn't have done that. Right? I mean, just the goofy, like, oh, you thought it'd be creative to you know, have your cover letter be landscape format. Okay, and fine, whatever, but was that a good choice? I'm not so sure it was. Again, that quiet confidence, have enough white space. Don't feel like you have to cram everything you've ever done in, that I'm going to be impressed by volume. Have some white space, have a short cover letter that does the basic thing a cover letter needs to do. Don't tell me your life story. I can learn that when we work together if you get that far. Same with your portfolio. Have an elegant piece of design. Tell your story, but have the confidence to know that it doesn't have to be jammed, you know, with 1,000 things. I don't have to see everything. I'm not going to look at everything. That's where the confidence of a person's personality, to me, comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good advice. It's hard. Sometimes I felt when I was putting my portfolio together, I was getting so much different advice from everybody, and everybody's kind of so different that sometimes even like the simplest things really matter. I remember someone told me that designers and architects these days only want like small portfolios instead of like a larger 11 by 17 portfolio. So I remember like bringing my portfolio in, and someone looked at it and was like, I can't even like see your work. It's so small. And I like thought that was like the trendy thing to do at the time. So I think there's some, you know, overarching, you know, design principles that you can follow that are so helpful. And then at the end of the day, it just really is showing off your work. That is probably excellent in like a really, you know, clean and crisp and desirable way. Sorry, go ahead.
And there is no one size fits all. There's no one right way. There's a lot of wrong ways to do it, I would say, but there's no one right way. And that's part of the fun, right? That's why I actually enjoy reviewing people's stuff. Like, what do you got? You know? And I remember, now look, the last time I actually was interviewing for a job was 20 years ago. So grain of salt here, but I do remember earlier in my career doing interviews, and I noticed every time I walked out and went, that didn't go well, I never got an offer from those firms. But when I walked out and was like, oh my God, I can totally see myself here, they generally felt the same thing. I think there's this kind of resonance, right? And if that occurs or it doesn't, and the portfolio is part of getting you into that in-person interaction to find out if that happened. But your portfolio, no matter how good, does not get you a job. In my
interior designer.
Busy day of stuff.
Oh, that's someone who doesn't have their mute on.
Yeah, I think maybe mute if you don't already know that you're muted.
I have a question. What are some things that you would recommend not doing? Anything stick out to you? Anything memorable?
Yeah, that's such a big category. I think, oh, okay, yeah, I got a couple good ones. I call it archi-speak, and again, I see this more with the architects than the interior designers, thank God. It's this way of writing where I'm not sure what the motivation is, but it seems to be that like if you use the biggest, most jargony words possible, that somehow that gets you points. There's a school, SciArc in Southern California, where every time I get an application from someone who's there, I'm like, okay, here we go. What kind of crazy word salad am I gonna see? You know, don't do that. Don't feel like you're gonna impress me by making your communication confusing. That is exactly the opposite of what I'm hiring a person to do. Again, that's such an architect's thing at ArchiTalk. Talked about the importance of editing and just polishing. This is your chance. Don't screw it up with a spelling mistake. And look, if I see a spelling mistake, I don't wig out. But when it's like, wow, you spelled the name of my company wrong. Wow, your first sentence in your, the very first thing I've looked at is like, has an error in it. Whew, that's not a good look, So don't be sloppy. This is your chance. Overly affected or overly designed, if you will, stuff, trying to have that, again, that sort of desperate, I need to stand out, and the way to do it is, through some really wackadoodle, graphic thing or something. Don't do that. This is professional work, and it should look a little bit, it should be a little bit formal, right? For me, in my estimation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. If someone has a couple of renderings that they're very proud of, but the project itself doesn't have a great story, does it make sense to have another section at the very end of like additional renderings or other artwork, or just move on?
I love it when I can tell, one of the things, and again, I can't say this too much. This is about me. I don't know about anybody else, but one of the most appealing things to me is enthusiasm, is getting the sense that someone gives a shit about something, right? So if you've got something that you are just like, Todd, you need to know about this. Get it in there, put it up front, make a big deal out of it, right? So I don't have a crisp answer to your question, but I think that you could have in the story you're telling, right? You can have, here's a project that was down and dirty, and this was my contribution to it, and here's this rendering I did. Move on, right? I don't have again, I'm sort of looking at the resume or the portfolio as a unit. Can you express what you've done, what you bring to the table, right? In a clear and concise way. And I'll be honest, I don't dig deep into the content too much. If there's a lot of writing, if you're telling me the whole story of your project, I will probably read that for one project as much as anything to see if the writing is any good. We write so much as professionals. I swear, I think I send emails all day, pretty much is my job, right? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. But do make it clear what you did. I mean, there is also such a thing as having too little writing. So don't have too much, at least for me, right? Because I'm just not gonna read it. It's boring, frankly, sorry. And don't have too little. Don't have just pure graphics where I'm like, well, what even is this, right? So captions are great. And especially make it clear what did you do, right? And again, if it's entry level, it's pretty much all your work. But if it's a group project, well, tell me what your component was. I've had candidates that I've reviewed where I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this project before. Well, it was people who are on a group project. They've each applied, right? And it's kind of funny to see how different people will actually present the same group project. sort of fascinating. But yeah, make it clear what you contributed and what's important for me to know.
Do we have any last kind of burning questions that anyone wants to ask? Awesome. I think, sorry, go ahead. Were you gonna say something, Todd?
Just let your personality shine through, right? That's super, I think that's you can't be anybody else. And if you try, you'll do a poor job of it. So don't. Be who you are and make it clear, right? Let your enthusiasm, your interests, come through, because that I think resonates the clearest. People that are trying to kind of fake their way through stuff doesn't really ring true. Your cover letter, customize it for the job. I can tell when it's a form and you just copy paste it in the name of the firm. And I get it. You're not going to write a whole different cover letter for every firm. Why would you? But do just enough research that you know what it is we do, right? And have something that relates to that. I get these cover letters that crack me up because there's usually a paragraph that says something about, I want to imply to your firm because I love your unique use of space and lighting. I'm like, the fuck? No, no, you don't. You just have that. You think that if you give me some vague compliment, I'd be like, well, I need to talk to this person. No, don't try to trick me. I can see right through it.
Oh man, I think that's great to end on. Well, thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. I think you answered some awesome questions. I know I've actually learned something during this too. This is great. I really appreciate it.
I hope this was helpful, you guys. Good luck. Yeah, go get them.
So I think we're just going to use our last, 2 minutes that we have to talk about our next month's roundtable. Is there any ideas that someone wants to bring up for a topic that we could talk about for next time? Sounds good. Thank you. I know we spoke about maybe doing a part 2 series to the portfolios because there's so much that is that goes into them. Maybe we could do ones about, giving a good interview or things like that. Anyone have any ideas?
I think that's a great idea, Emily, about the interviews, and maybe we could include resumes if there is bandwidth, if there's professionals who might be willing to give us pointers, just like Todd today was giving on portfolios. That might be helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so a little bit of a mashup, maybe some more portfolio advice, but mostly we focus on resumes and things like that too.
Possibly.
Okay. Ooh, someone just wrote in how to craft a professional online presence. That is a great one too. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we start with some resume interview tips, and then the month after we can do some online presence.
Yeah. Cool. Was there anything from today's presentation that you thought we breezed through just a little bit too fast you'd like to hear more about? Any of that can also be another topic.
Can I ask something? So I always confused about the picture, the photographs on a portfolio, as a part of resume, because some professional says that you shouldn't include your photo. Another one saying, and I see recently that it's very popular that when you present yourself, you just include your photograph. So it's actually confusing. Should we include that or not?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I've heard a little bit back and forth several times. I know I was taught to not include it. But you're right, what you're saying, there's some people out there that think that's a really great idea. I think it kind of what comes down to what we were speaking about earlier is it's personal preference. You know, everyone's going to think something a little bit different. If that's something that you feel that you want to include, I would definitely include it. So a little bit up to you, I would say.
Yeah, if they're interested enough, they'll probably just check you out on LinkedIn too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily, I just can I weigh in on that too?
Yeah.
So I'm teaching a class this semester, helping students put together resumes, cover letters, portfolios. So someone asked me this question and I answered pretty much verbatim to what Emily just said. And I was all proud of myself. I thought that was it. And then I reached out to an HR manager at a corporate architecture firm and asked her just to get her opinion. Cause I was taught don't do it, but then I was kind of like, if you feel strongly about it, then go for it. She kind of said, never do it. And her reason was she thinks it just gives another reason for like implicit or explicit bias. She's like, they're going to find out what you look like at your interview. So don't she said she just kind of wishes no one would do it because then it wouldn't even be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That is very clear. Because it's like clear position of HR and like.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because I thought now that everything's virtual, maybe there is a space to do that. You know, maybe it is different than what I was taught years ago. But that was her answer. And so I shared that with my students. And I thought when she put it in that kind of framework, I thought that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I always found that you don't normally look like your picture in the resume. So when you show up, you're like kind of like surprised because I've had students who've done that too, and it is very popular. But I would say to make it more unbiased, you don't need to provide your photo. But I mean, there are people who do because a lot of names you're not sure if they're female or male, and I mean it shouldn't weigh in on your decision to interview them.
Yeah, that's some really wonderful advice. I appreciate it, everybody. And with that, I don't want to take up too much time from everybody. We're a little bit over, but I appreciate everybody for coming. We will have our next month's roundtable. And thank you so much, everyone.
Emily, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just starting school, so I don't know if this is a obvious question, but like, do you feel like just through your schoolwork you were able to have enough projects for your portfolio, or do you also need to have that real life work experiences as well?
I would say internships are wonderful, and that gets you a little bit experience in different sectors that you are thinking about going into. Like, I didn't really understand what healthcare design really was until I started working at a healthcare design firm, and I did an internship that way. So I think that's wonderful to include in your portfolio as well. But if you just have, and I don't want to say just because your school projects are amazing and you learn so much from that. But yeah, your school projects, if that's what you have, then go with it. You know, it's all about how you present things and make them, look wonderful. And then in your presentation, just kind of share what you learned from those projects, how you're going to bring that to working at this firm. But again, internships are amazing. You learn so much. I would definitely try to include that in too, if you're able.
Yeah, I just add on that if you are applying for an entry-level position, the hiring team knows that. They are aware of what to expect. So don't put too much pressure. Don't compare yourself to a professional's portfolio. It will never look the same. You don't have a professional photographer. You didn't actually build out that kitchen. So don't compare yourself to that. Just focus on your story that you're telling. And whether that is from your school projects or if it's work that you were able to pull from actual work experience, volunteer work is also very great. Yeah, don't put too much pressure on looking pristine. Yeah.
And like for the internships and stuff, they like probably won't ask for portfolios at that. Like, did you need a portfolio to get an internship?
I think that's different for everybody. I think it's good to have. Whether they look at it or not is their choice. But if you have it ready, give it to them, give them the option to review it.
We always expect it at our firm. Every intern that we've interviewed has a portfolio of some kind. I mean, if you only have like a few sheets of something, then, you know, and they really are interested in hiring you as an intern, then you could probably get away with it. But all of the ones that we've looked at have a full portfolio.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, think about your connections. Anytime you go to an IIDA event, you're meeting all of these designers that work at firms. A lot of internships that I got, I just reached out to a designer and was able to get an internship there. So that's the kind of another foot in your door. You know, that's what we're here for at IIDA. We're like building all of these different connections to help. Kim, sorry, did I see that you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a really quick question and very specific. So I have a couple projects that are on very large boards that were never digitized. And I guess I just love to get a tip or trick on how best to get that sort of digitized to put into a portfolio. How should I go about doing that?
Yeah, I know I had a couple of those in my portfolio as well. I had a friend who was a photographer with like a nicer camera, and she just like took pictures of the boards and really nice lighting. And then I just like printed those pictures PDF and put them in my portfolio. And then I was able to talk through them that way. So I think that's one idea. Does anyone else have an idea to build off of that? Or
I'm not sure what kind of board you're talking about, but I don't think that would most likely be in your portfolio. You'd probably have to redo it to make it look
maybe
up to date.
Yeah. Okay. It's a board that I'm very proud of the work, and it's very colorful, and it's very it's a restaurant concept basically. So I don't want to dismantle it. I do want to show it. So I'll figure out a way to photograph it so it looks good
or maybe just take parts and then recreate it in some other way.
Okay.
Yeah, for the hand drafting stuff, you can actually take it to professional print shops and get it scanned, because if you had drafted on vellum, it will not photograph well, it will glare. So definitely bring it to get professionally scanned.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
That's a great idea, Bethany. All right.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay, now I will actually release you. Thanks again for everyone for coming.
Thanks everyone. See you guys next month.
See ya.
See you.